morning, students. My name is Sanmarie Steenkamp, and I will be presenting the Life Skills 2 module and the Diploma in Education Secondary for the 2020 examinations. On the slide, you can find my email address, and you can also contact me on that email. It's a little bit easier than the telephone calls. However, if you should call, I'll try my best to answer. Okay, just before we start, some pointers on this presentation. Please take note that I don't go into full details on whatever I present, because we do have time constrictions, and you are encouraged to read through your entire study guide and make sure you are familiar with everything in it. All right. So, when we look at the outline of your study guide, there are 5 units, and the first unit is about examining the content about teaching of family life aspects. Unit 2 looks at analyzing the content about teaching of financial orientated issues. Unit 3 is about to examine the content and teaching of self-awareness and emotional intelligent elements. 3 is to explore the content about and teaching of relationships. And 5, to analyze the content about and teaching of democratic citizenship. So without wasting time, we will move on to Unit 1. And there we will look at specifically the social influences on gender roles. So quite a number of things are mentioned there, like the values of a society has an influence on gender roles. In other words, how we act, how we behave as the gender that society has given us to do. The norms of a society, traditions, morals, attitudes, and beliefs of a society. So it's almost like prescribed rules and ideas of how we should act and be. The different gender roles in the family, we normally see that females are the nurturers and seen as more mothering, those who clean and cook and prepare and look after others. The males or men tend to be more dominating and stronger in their roles and are seen as those who needs to make the money, protect their families, and go out to work to provide for the rest of the family. The origin of gender roles can be seen as far back as the beginning of the first form of social life. Men went out to hunt, while women stayed behind together. Men were the food suppliers, and they were physically strong and fit, where females would stay at home, look after the children, and cook. These gender roles were needed in order for basic societies to survive. Gender roles within the family are typically defined by the social and cultural norms of the society that one lives in. The roles can help a family to fulfill their responsibilities, and any changes in these gender roles can affect the family and its general functioning. So when we look at the different types of families, and again, please go and read up what each of these different types of families mean, what they entail, to get a clearer understanding. So we get the extended family, a nuclear family, and a blended family. We get single-parent families, adoptive families, a foster family, a child-headed family, and the single-parent families. So there are many different types of families. We move on to assertiveness and the ways it can be used within the family to avoid blame and disrespect. So it's important in your family to make sure that you communicate your point of view to the family while you are still respecting them. Be open thus to express your thoughts and feelings and desire, and encourage other members in your family to do the same. Listen to the opinions of others and also to their advice. This is very important and one of the biggest factors that creates dysfunctionality in a family is that members don't listen to each other. Take what you need and to take and leave behind what is unnecessary. If you do not like a family member's advice, reject it gently using positive words. Admit your mistakes when you are wrong and say sorry when you are wrong. We look at the nature and advantages of holding family meetings. So very rarely these days family meetings take place. However, it is extremely important to keep families together and to be open and transparent and just to show interest in each other. So when you do run a family meeting, you can decide who is involved. Each person can state their own perspective, and one needs to ask them what is their suggestions for whatever you are discussing at that time. You can write it down and develop a plan of action of how to deal with the issue. That should be one sentence. So the action plan should take place at the end of the session. Have a follow-up meeting. Value everyone's input. So don't, like the number 9 says, don't treat one member as more important than the other when it comes to opinion and input. And listen to everybody and encourage each other. Avoid letting one person dominate the entire meeting. And keep the meeting short. You don't want a 3-hour family meeting and never get to some point. Alright, so advantages and disadvantages of having a small family. Some of the advantages can include that each child receives enough attention from parents and also gets more love. The financial costs are significantly less, and there's more opportunities in terms of education and sports for the children. There's less chance of conflict within the family, and parents have a better quality of life, and so too the children. So there's less strain for the mothers, who mostly also work these days, and less health risk, and higher levels of education due to having more money. Disadvantages of having a small family is that parents can become overprotective over their children. Parents can be overly attentive, and the child become attached to parents as a result of number 1 and 2. The child is very often not well-rounded and can become selfish. Children do not learn responsibility as well, and they may feel lonely. So they tend to have much higher egos than children from big families. We move on to corporal punishment. As you may know, there has been a video leaking recently, and also a case against a teacher who was hitting and screaming at her children. So please do take note of the following. Corporal punishment involves the following actions taken against a child. That would be hitting, squeezing, dragging, slapping, and spanking. Corporal punishment does not achieve any results that are positive and can cause both serious physical and psychological harm. More serious is probably psychological harm, as it takes a lot longer to heal than physical harm. It is often used as a weapon of power and can easily be abused. We move on to Unit 2, and here we look at the implications of growing unemployment in Namibia, which is also something that is quite pertinent and very much visible at the moment in Namibia. So people going through unemployment often feel lost, angry, listless, and can become depressed. It can lead to a sense of failure, low self-esteem, and desperation to provide for their families and for basic survival. There are different types of unemployment, and also again go and read up what each of these different types of unemployment means to make sure you understand it. So we get frictional unemployment, structural unemployment, cyclical, technological, classic or real wage, and seasonal unemployment. Right, we move on to the main motives of people on earth and what those are supposed to be. So why are we on earth? What are we doing here? So one point of view is to realize one's potential and ideals, to achieve biological perfection, seek wisdom and knowledge, to do good, to do the right thing. And this one especially, to do good and do the right thing, is integrity, which I was talking about a bit earlier, meanings relating to religion, to love, to feel, to enjoy the act of living, to have power, and to be better. We now move on to components of a business plan. Important to stress here is there's a specific order when you look at the components of a business plan. You have a step 1, you have a step 2, you have a step 3, and it does need to follow that order. You cannot jump from step 1 to step 5 to step 9. So make sure that you understand how each step flows into the other. So very first, you need to have a mission statement and a vision statement to explain what type of business you are creating. You need to then give a description of the business, a description of how this product or service that you will be providing will be different than others that's already out there. An analysis of the market that you are going to enter, a description of the management team, a description of how the product is going to be marketed, an analysis of the strengths and the weaknesses of the business. This is extremely important. It will give you a nice holistic overview of what you plan to do and also show the risks of your business. The statement describing cash flow that will be needed for future growth, a projection of revenue, and a summary that ties all of the above together. So that would be a very decent, well-written business plan. Right. We go on to the advantages of having a bank account. So a bank card allows a person to draw money at an ATM or shopping tills that offer cashback options. Salaries can be directly deposited into a bank account without needing to go to the bank to make a physical deposit. A debit card is generally accepted anyway, and most banks offer insurance on cash saved in your bank account. Banks also offer an interest rate that adds to the incentive of saving. Right. When we look at the Ministry of Education, who implemented in 2003 free basic education from grades 0 to 7, it led to an increase in learners in schools, in primary schools specifically. However, there was some challenges when these changes were made. So I mentioned 4 of these changes here, or challenges, and one was attaining funding from the Ministry of Finance. So they created delays in funds from regional councils to schools, and it also resulted in a lack of training and how to use the funds adequately, and also a deliberate mismanagement of those funds that were received also took place. Okay. So in Unit 2, we look at the practical steps of handling a disciplinary situation in the life skills class. Okay, so I put there Classroom Discipline 101. So when we do try to discipline learners, we do it in a positive way, and we give learners a behavioral reminder that they have crossed the line and they need to settle down. An environmental adjustment might be needed. So you might want to ask the child to just walk around the classroom or take a walk. You might want to change the setup of your class to make it more conducive for learners. Another method to use is time out. response cost, and behavior meeting. Alright, so it's done in a very formal way and also in a strict way, keeping the best interest of the child in mind at all times. Okay, we move on to Unit 3, and here we're going to look at the human needs of the model of Maslow. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs is based on a 5-tier model of human needs, depicted or set out in a pyramid, as you can see there on the screen. Maslow wanted to try and understand what it is that people are motivated by. He believed that we all have a set of motivations that we want to achieve, and some are more important than others. So when you look at the hierarchy in this model of Maslow, you will see at the bottom is the basic needs, which include safety needs and physiological needs. The second one is the psychological needs, which is self-esteem, belongingness, and love needs. And then the last one is self-actualization, so achieving one's full potential. Okay. We now look at coping mechanisms for different emotions, especially that of anger, loneliness, jealousy, fear, and joy. So I will only be touching on anger and its coping mechanisms. So make sure you read all of those others, loneliness, jealousy, fear, and joy, to have a better understanding also of coping mechanisms. So uncontrolled emotions can easily take a toll on the body and on a person's health. There are some vital tips a person can follow to ensure that they are coping with their anger. The very first one is to think before you speak. So in other words, to be able to stop yourself before responding. Only express anger from a place of calm and exercise. So this might sound more easily than done, as anger can many times come so quickly that you don't have time to think, and you might blurt out something not in a calm manner and not in a respectful manner. So this is also something that one needs to practice. Okay, we move on to some ways that a person can use to build up another person and apply in that way positive skills to encourage and praise. The very first thing is to respect people in your circle. So in other words, you validate them for who they are. You can be wise in what you say and always do it in a positive way. You encourage them to build on themselves, to build on their positive sides, to build on the nice things and the good things that they are doing. You can be forgiving and understanding. Probably the most important ones is to be understanding, not to gossip and slander, to share the knowledge that you have, and to stay humble. We struggle today to share what we know. It's like people want to keep their knowledge to themselves, even though it could help the person next to you. So be open. You won't lose anything. Alright, we move on to the 7 essential virtues necessary for moral intelligence. And here we have Barba's essential virtues and also a description of what they mean. So the 7 virtues is empathy, conscience, self-control, respect, kindness, tolerance, and fairness. So I'm just going to touch on a few. Empathy, an extremely important one, is to identify with the feelings of other people's concern. So in other words, to be able to step into the other person's shoes and imagine what they might be going through. Self-control is regulating your thoughts and your actions so that you can stop any pressures from within or out and act the way you know and feel is right. Respect, an extremely important one, is to show you value others and treating them in a courteous and considerate way. Tolerance is to respect the dignity and rights of all persons, even those beliefs and behaviors we may disagree with. So this would mean that there's not only one way to do things and one way to believe in. We need to tolerate other religions, other behaviors, if they don't do harm, and understand that there are different points of views. All right, fairness, the last one, is to choosing to be open-minded and to act in a just and fair way. Right, so choosing to be open-minded, as you can see, it is a choice. You don't have to stay ignorant, you can become open-minded. Right. In Unit 3, we also look at the benefits of a positive attitude towards life. So what can we get out of being positive, having a positive attitude? We can increase our lifespan. In other words, we can live much longer. We can lower our depression rates and stress levels. We have a higher immunity and resistance to colds and flus. We improve our psychological well-being and physical well-being. And there's also a reduced risk of cardiovascular related death. So that would be things like heart attacks, and improved coping skills. So you can see there's a lot of wonderful benefits to having a positive attitude. So your body reacts physically to positive thoughts and positive behaviors. We move again to motivation of life skills learners and to teach them the importance of the subject of life skills. So here I took a quote from your study guide, which I found to describe life skills in a very comprehensive way. So I'm going to read it to you. Life skills are the strategies, techniques, and approaches all people use to survive and thrive in our everyday experience. Some of us acquire life skills without even thinking about it. We learn them from our parents and loved ones. We watch other people go about their daily routines, and we perfect our own skills by trial and error. For others, life skills might not come so easily. We might simply struggle to figure them out. Or we might feel as though no one has ever had the patience to show us or teach us the way. Children, like adults, vary in a great deal in their ability to pick up life skills. By teaching life skills in the classroom, we can help even the playing field and set children up for success in their own lives. Okay, so at the end of the day, life skills comes down to having a successful and happy life. We go to Unit 4, and here we look at the importance of selecting decent friends rather than popular ones. So hanging out with the social crowd can be rewarding, but perhaps not emotionally rewarding. So popular friends can be fun to have. They can get you into all the right places with all the right people, but are they there for you when things fall apart? We've seen so many times where when people go through difficult times, suddenly all their friends disappear and they stand alone in their pain. So we have to look here at quality versus popularity. We'll have to look at sharing and caring. We have to look at the social following, acquaintances, care, honesty, and motivation. All right, so all of those aspects you can use to judge whether you have the right friends around you. We look at the difference between teen dating and adult dating. So when teens are dating, in selecting a date, teenagers will much rather look at who is hot and who is not when they make a choice. And with adults, they will meet in an adult environment and hang out, where teenagers would rather choose somebody from their same social circle. Seeing each other for teens happen mostly at school and after, when not on the playground or on doing sports. Adults will be able to see each other whenever they want. When it comes to fighting, teenagers tend to fight about silly rumors and others talking about them. Adults' fights are much more serious, and it can be about something that is a bit more serious and substantial. So some handy hints for dating. Dating partners should be considerate towards each other and have an understanding of each other's needs. Insensitive people find it hard to connect emotionally with others. So a big thing comes out here, and that is an understanding of each other's needs. So many times we have an idea of what we think the other person needs. However, we are not clear because the other person might not have expressed it very clearly. And when you start to assume that you know what the other person needs, this many times creates conflict, and then a date might go wrong, or you might find out that your relationship is falling apart. So be very verbal and very clear about your needs and find out exactly what it is that the other needs. Partners should trust each other. Constant nagging and suspicion always takes its toll on a relationship. This is very big among partners, the trust issue. The jealousy seems to take over very quickly, and partners struggle to trust each other. Be there for each other in times of need and support each other emotionally. This is sometimes difficult as we don't know how to approach the person if he is in pain, but the best way can also just to be there. You don't have to say anything, you can just be there for the person. For a relationship to work, you should be able to express your feelings. Telling your partner how you feel might be difficult to do, but it will play a key role in the success of your relationship. All right, so this last one sort of speaks to all the other three and could be the most important part of a successful relationship, is that you actually talk to your partner, tell them how you feel, tell them what you need, be there. All right. So we go to the next one, which is psychological damage of teen pregnancy. So what could happen when a teen falls pregnant? There might be a sense of denial, so they don't believe that they are pregnant, or they don't want to admit it, which can lead to them not going for the medical care that they need. A self-obsession, so a teenage mother might move to becoming self-obsessed and may not be able to focus on anything else. Guilt, this leads to psychological issues and she might need counseling. Self-esteem, she might feel ugly, fat and unwanted. Okay, move on to the last unit. And here we're going to look at the characteristics of a responsible democratic citizen. So there are some characteristics that they mention, and there are many more in your study guide. Again, make sure that you read through. Right, so a responsible democratic citizen are able to help people resolve conflict in their own family and within the community. They have integrity. Very, very important word. So integrity is sometimes defined as doing the right thing even when no one is watching. So it's something that comes from within you. Many people do things in the right way, in a good way, because they know that they are being watched. All right. If you have seen the video of the teacher hitting the children, she did not know that she was being watched, so her integrity is really questionable. They can be trusted, they can be depended on, they live a healthy lifestyle, and they have an awareness of social and environmental issues. In other words, they remain open-minded, they stay up to date with what is going on in the world. We move on to house parties. So here the study guide gives you some tips that you need to keep in mind, that you can teach learners when they do want to throw a house party, that they do the following things, is to make sure that they let the neighbors know. They can make the entrance to the party by invite only, so not that it's open to just anybody. You never know who will turn up. They do not advertise it thus over social media. Be clear about a starting and a finishing time. This is a struggle sometimes as young people want to party right through the night. So make clear that you state exactly when the party will end. On the invite, you need to state that the party is alcohol-free and make sure that all valuables in your house is locked away. And have access to a phone during the event for in case you do encounter an emergency. So we look at the disadvantages of a democracy. As you know, Namibia is a democratic country, but it also not only has its advantages, but also its disadvantages. So although we might think that we are free from many things and not controlled, some of the disadvantages include that it can allow for public funds to be and time to be misused. And thus corruption can take place. Wrong choices can result in huge consequences for the people of Namibia. And there's also the right not to vote. So we know that elections are coming up, and being a democratic country, many of the people might decide, but I don't have to vote. I'm not forced to vote. Okay, and this do have an impact on where the country is going. Okay, lastly we look at the sustainable natural resources that we have on Earth. And that would be water, sun and wind energy, air, climate, and land. Again, as mentioned, please make sure that you read up on sustainable natural resources. Okay, some recycling facts. And this is important to know because you need to teach your learners about recycling. It's becoming more and more important as our Earth is experiencing so much damage, which is almost 100% caused by humans. So more than 60% of the rubbish that ends up in trash bins can be recycled. Around 16% of the cost of a product is spent on its packaging, which is completely wasted if not disposed of properly. 80% of a vehicle can be recycled. Aluminium cans can be recycled completely and put to use in a short time. Thousands of glass jars and bottles are thrown away every year. Glass can be recycled 100% and reused. And that's the end of the presentation. I thank you very much and I wish you all the best of luck with your examinations.